The limestone courthouse stood like an aging sentinel in the heart of Atlanta, its weathered steps witnessing countless legal battles. Inside courtroom 3B, the air crackled with an unspoken tension that seemed to center on one woman, Amara Thompson. At 35, she was a study in controlled power, her tailored navy suit pressed to perfection, every crease a deliberate statement. Her dark skin gleamed with a subtle confidence that came from years of navigating spaces where she was perpetually underestimated. The case before her was more than just another legal challenge. It was a federal investigation into systemic corruption that reached deep into local government corridors. Judge Marcus Harrison, a 62-year-old fixture of the judicial system, watched her from his elevated bench. His silver hair and meticulously maintained appearance spoke of old-school privilege, a remnant of a judicial era not entirely comfortable with changing demographics. His eyes narrowed as Amara approached the podium, her stack of meticulously organized documents looking more like a strategic arsenal than mere paperwork. "Miss Thompson," he drawled, his southern accent thick with condescension, "perhaps you'd like to explain how someone like you thinks she can challenge our established legal precedent." The phrase, "someone like you," hung in the air, a loaded statement that carried the weight of generations of unspoken bias. The courtroom fell silent. Lawyers shuffled uncomfortably. Court reporters paused, fingers hovering over stenotype machines. Junior attorneys exchanged quick, nervous glances. They all recognized the loaded moment, the unspoken challenge that went far beyond legal arguments. Amara's right hand rested casually near her jacket, a subtle movement that went unnoticed by most. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, locked onto Judge Harrison. Years of Secret Service training had taught her that the most powerful response was often found in silence, in the space between words where true power resided. Her mind raced through the case details, months of investigation, countless interviews, deep-dive forensic accounting that had uncovered a web of municipal corruption so intricate it could destabilize entire local government structures. She wasn't just a lawyer today. She was a federal agent on a mission, a guardian of justice wearing the carefully constructed armor of professional legal argument. Judge Harrison seemed to sense something more was brewing. His initial confidence began to waver, replaced by a growing unease. Something in Amara's demeanor suggested that this was far from an ordinary legal proceeding. The game had changed, and he was about to discover just how profoundly. The courtroom transformed into a psychological battlefield, with Amara as its most disciplined soldier. Her mind traveled back to the countless obstacles she'd overcome, the whispers, the sidelong glances, the subtle and not-so-subtle attempts to marginalize her throughout her career. Her father's words echoed in her memory, a retired military veteran who had fought his own battles against systemic racism. He'd once told her, "They'll try to provoke you. Your restraint is your greatest weapon." Those words had been her shield, her strategy in every challenging encounter. Each of Judge Harrison's words was a calculated psychological assault. They weren't just attacks on her legal argument, they were deliberate attempts to destabilize her professional composure. He employed a tactical approach perfected over decades, weaponizing condescension, using institutional authority as a sledgehammer to crush potential opposition. Amara's fingers, resting on her meticulously prepared legal brief, tightened with microscopic precision. To an untrained eye, she appeared completely calm. But beneath the surface, her body was a coiled spring of controlled energy. Years of Secret Service training had transformed her into a master of emotional regulation. She had protected high-ranking government officials in some of the world's most volatile situations. A hostile courtroom was merely another challenge. Her peripheral vision captured the reactions around her. Junior lawyers shifted uncomfortably. Senior attorneys looked away, unwilling to challenge the judge's obvious bias. The court stenographer's fingers moved mechanically, recording every loaded word without emotion. But Amara saw everything. The slight twitch in the judge's left eye when he was particularly agitated, the nervous swallow of the prosecuting attorney, the almost imperceptible shake of the court bailiff's head. Her training went beyond physical protection. It was about reading environments, understanding power dynamics, and knowing exactly when and how to assert control. Each micro-expression, each subtle body language cue told a story, and Amara was fluent in reading those narratives. The legal brief before her wasn't just a document, it was a meticulously constructed weapon. Months of investigation had gone into its preparation. Forensic accounting that traced corrupt municipal contracts, interviews that revealed systemic kickback schemes, financial trails that connected seemingly unrelated transactions. Judge Harrison continued his verbal assault, seemingly unaware that each word was not breaking her spirit, but instead fueling her resolve. She wasn't just defending a case. She was challenging an entire system of entrenched generational corruption. Her breath remained steady, her posture remained unchanged. But behind her eyes, a strategic storm was brewing, precise, calculated, and ready to be unleashed at the perfect moment. Judge Harrison unleashed a calculated verbal assault designed to break Amara's resolve. His words became increasingly personal, a calculated strategy to strip away her professional veneer. "Miss Thompson," he said, his voice dripping with manufactured concern, "I'm not sure you fully comprehend the complexities of municipal law. Perhaps you'd benefit from some guidance." The subtext was clear. He wasn't offering advice, he was attempting to infantilize her, to reduce her decades of legal and federal experience to that of an inexperienced novice. Each syllable was a psychological weapon, meticulously designed to undermine her credibility. Whispers erupted in the courtroom's periphery. Some were genuine shock, others were muffled expressions of uncomfortable recognition, a familiar dance of institutional power played out countless times before. Young lawyers exchanged knowing glances. Veteran attorneys studied their legal pads, unwilling to challenge the judge's obvious power play. Amara's research file sat before her, a testament to months of painstaking investigation. Hundreds of pages documented a complex web of municipal corruption, phantom contracts, redirected funds, kickback schemes that stretched across multiple government departments. Each document was a potential bomb, ready to detonate the carefully constructed facade of local governmental integrity. The judge continued, his attack growing more pointed. "Your arguments seem passionate, but passion isn't the same as legal understanding." The word passion hung in the air, deliberately chosen to suggest emotional instability rather than professional competence. Her father's military training echoed in her mind. Know your opponent's tactics. Their aggression reveals their weakness. And Judge Harrison was revealing more than he realized. Each increasingly personal attack demonstrated not confidence but fear. Fear of what her investigation might uncover. The courtroom's temperature seemed to drop. Attorneys shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The court reporter's fingers moved mechanically, capturing every loaded word. But something was changing. The initial nervous energy was transforming into something else, a collective anticipation. Amara's right hand moved almost imperceptibly closer to her jacket, a subtle movement that would mean nothing to most observers. But for those trained to notice, those who understood the nuanced language of federal authority, it was a signal, a warning. Judge Harrison, so consumed by his performance of judicial superiority, failed to notice the shift. He continued his verbal assault, unaware that each word was not diminishing Amara, but instead building the momentum for a response that would reshape everything. Amara's hand moved with calculated precision, a movement perfected through years of federal training. Her jacket opened in a fluid motion that was part choreography, part martial art. The Secret Service badge caught the courtroom's fluorescent lighting, transforming from a hidden weapon to a blinding statement of authority. The metallic surface reflected against the polished wood of the courtroom, casting a sharp glint that cut through the judge's verbal assault like a knife. Its presence was more than a mere identification, it was an indictment. Judge Harrison's face underwent a remarkable transformation, arrogance drained away, replaced by a pallor that suggested instant recognition. His mouth, previously so confident and cutting, now hung open, a perfect image of institutional power suddenly confronted with its own limitations. Around the courtroom, a collective intake of breath created a vacuum of sound. Junior lawyers froze mid-motion. The court stenographer's fingers suspended above the keys. Even the bailiff, a veteran of countless legal proceedings, stood momentarily stunned. The badge represented more than a federal credential. It was a symbol of multilayered authority, legal expertise combined with high-level security clearance. Years of investigating complex federal cases, protecting national leaders, navigating the most sensitive political landscapes. All of that history was contained in that single metallic emblem. Amara's eyes never left Judge Harrison. Her stance remained unchanged, but the room's entire energy had shifted. What was moments ago a potential professional humiliation had transformed into a masterclass of controlled power. The judge's earlier condescension evaporated instantly. His understanding of the courtroom's power dynamics, so carefully cultivated over decades, crumbled in a single moment. He was no longer the unquestioned authority. He was now the one being evaluated, judged by someone with far more comprehensive power. Her Secret Service background wasn't just a credential, it was a complete reframing of the entire legal proceeding. Every previous comment, every attempted character assassination, now hung in the air like discarded paper, weightless and irrelevant. The silence was absolute, and in that silence Amara Thompson stood, not just as a lawyer, not just as a federal agent, but as a living testament to professional excellence that refused to be defined by anything other than her own remarkable capabilities. The courtroom became a pressure chamber of unspoken dynamics. Judge Harrison's previous confidence had been a carefully constructed facade, now stripped away with surgical precision. "Your Honor." Amara's voice cut through the silence, velvet soft yet carrying the unmistakable edge of federal authority. "Shall we continue our legal discussion?" Her words were a masterpiece of controlled professional restraint. No gloating, no visible triumph. Just pure, unassailable professional competence. The judge's hands trembled almost imperceptibly. Decades of judicial power had never prepared him for this moment. A challenge that couldn't be dismissed, silenced, or marginalized. Every racist and discriminatory tactic he deployed throughout his career had just been neutralized by a single strategic revelation. Around the courtroom, the power dynamics rewrote themselves in real time. Junior lawyers who moments ago had been uncomfortable now sat straighter. The court stenographer's fingers resumed their mechanical recording, but with a new intensity. Each movement, each breath became a testament to the profound shift that had just occurred. Amara's investigative file, hundreds of meticulously documented pages revealing a complex web of municipal corruption, now sat before her like a strategic arsenal. What had been a potential legal challenge was now a federal investigation with the full weight of national security behind it. Judge Harrison attempted to regain composure. "Ms. Thompson, perhaps we should." "Special Agent Thompson," she corrected, her tone clinical and precise. The subtle correction was another surgical strike, removing any pretense of familiarity, establishing the full extent of her professional standing. The bailiff shifted, his body language subtly adjusting. Those trained in federal protocols recognized the significance of the moment. This wasn't just a legal proceeding anymore. This was a federal intervention. Her Secret Service background wasn't merely a credential. It was a complete reframing of institutional power, a living challenge to systemic biases that had been protected by courtroom traditions for generations. In that moment, Amara Thompson wasn't just defending a case. She was dismantling an entire system of unchecked institutional prejudice, one calculated moment at a time. Amara's legal argument became a precision instrument of justice. Each point was backed by forensic evidence that transformed the courtroom into a clinical exposure of systemic corruption. Her first document revealed a network of municipal contracts that defied logical explanation: phantom construction projects, redirected funds, shell companies interconnected with local political donors. A web so intricate it would have remained invisible to less rigorous investigation. "Let's be clear," she began, her voice cutting through the courtroom's tension. "These aren't accounting discrepancies. These are deliberate, calculated financial crimes." The financial trail she presented was devastating. Millions of dollars had been systematically siphoned from public infrastructure projects. Road repair budgets, school renovation funds, emergency service allocations, all compromised by a sophisticated embezzlement scheme that stretched across multiple government departments. Judge Harrison's earlier confidence had completely evaporated. What remained was a visible fear: the recognition that his own judicial district was about to be exposed at the highest federal level. Amara's presentation was a masterclass in legal deconstruction, She didn't just present facts, she dismantled entire narratives of institutional integrity. Each document, each financial record was a surgical strike against the facade of governmental transparency. The prosecutor, who moments ago had been a passive observer, now looked visibly shaken. The implications of Amara's investigation reached far beyond a simple legal challenge. This was a complete systemic exposure. Her Secret Service training was evident in every moment. Unlike typical lawyers who might sensationalize their findings, she remained clinically precise. No emotional grandstanding, just pure, unassailable factual presentation. The financial forensics were breathtaking in their complexity. Offshore accounts, layered corporate structures, strategically timed fund transfers, each element revealed a sophisticated criminal infrastructure that had been operating with impunity. These aren't mistakes, Amara concluded, her final statement landing like a federal decree. These are deliberate, calculated financial crimes that have systematically robbed this community of millions in public resources. The courtroom had transformed from a place of potential humiliation to a federal tribunal of accountability. 12 months after the courtroom incident, Amara Thompson's life had become a catalyst for institutional change. Her federal investigation had triggered a domino effect that reshaped multiple government departments. 3 municipal commissioners resigned, 17 ongoing contracts were federally suspended. The judicial district underwent a complete structural review, with independent oversight committees established to prevent future abuses of power. Her dual career, as a Secret Service agent and specialized federal attorney, became a blueprint for professional excellence. Law schools began using her courtroom confrontation as a case study in institutional accountability. Young professionals of color saw her as a living example of how expertise could dismantle systemic barriers. The personal cost was significant. Anonymous threats arrived periodically. Political operatives attempted to discredit her through various channels, but Amara remained unshaken, her resolve tempered by years of navigating complex institutional landscapes. Her father, now retired, watched her transformation with quiet pride. The lessons he taught her about resilience, strategic patience, and unwavering integrity had manifested in ways he could never have imagined. Federal agencies began implementing new training protocols inspired by her approach. Workshops on addressing institutional bias, developing comprehensive investigative strategies, and maintaining professional composure under pressure became standard curriculum. The narrative wasn't just about her individual triumph. It represented a broader movement, a clear message that expertise, integrity, and strategic intervention could challenge even the most entrenched systemic prejudices. Months later, when asked about that pivotal courtroom moment, Amara would simply smile. Her badge wasn't a weapon. It was a tool of accountability, a symbol of collective possibility.